Welcome to the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders at B2B services, tech, and SaaS companies to learn the systems and processes they've used to create success for their business. We'll also learn from marketing and sales experts to provide insights to help you grow your business. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and the podcast is brought to you by Modern Revenue Strategies and their 10x ROI B2B growth guarantee. Schedule a free diagnostic call to learn the fastest path to double your B2B revenues in just 90 days. Welcome to another episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and today I'm very excited to welcome Anupam Bedi. He is the co-founder and CEO of Andean Advisory. Anupam has over 25 years of experience in the healthcare industry for companies including Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Laboratories, AtriCure, and in 2020, he co-founded Andean Advisory, which is an executive advisory and consulting firm advising dozens of companies across industries and geographies with strategic operations, growth strategies, and partnerships. Anupam also serves on Wright State University's Foundation Board of Trustees, on the Audit Committee, and also served WSU on Biomedical and Industrial Engineering Department Advisory Board. He's a strategic advisor to several early stage companies across industries, and I know he's got a lot of insights to share with us today. Anupam, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so obviously, really amazing background, 25 years of experience across lots of industries and really deep expertise in healthcare. Tell us more about what you're doing there with Andean.
Yeah, so as an advisory firm with Andean Advisory, I co-founded it, just 4 years ago, really to help a lot of different early to sort of mid-stage companies with their growth strategy. So prior to me co-founding my own advisory firm, I worked exclusively within the healthcare space. And then after I went through business school, I decided, that a lot of the challenges that companies face are similar to what I've experienced before in the healthcare industry in terms of how companies are growing, how they're looking to increase penetration. Maybe they're facing challenges in their business and they've hit a certain inflection point and sometimes just get stuck. Or they're on the other side of that and they're looking to say, okay, how do we further expand our footprint in the marketplace? And perhaps they're looking for an exit and they're looking to move forward beyond that. So there are a lot of different areas that I found that regardless of the industry that they're in, and in many cases, regardless of the geography that they're in, companies are still looking to ultimately to grow, get established, to grow, and continue to grow, gain new customers, and lead to that customer success also that's going to enable them to take them that much further. So because of that, because I work across industries, the name Andean Advisory, just to give it a brief kind of history, is so it's founded off of the name came from the Andes Mountains. Located in South America. So the Andes Mountains are the largest above ground mountain range in the world.
Okay.
So they have the broadest range. And so the logo that the company uses also is the Andean condor, which is the largest bird, actually. So the bird in the world with the largest wingspan. Okay. So there's breadth in addition to depth that we offer as a company, and so it's enabled us to be involved in not just healthcare but beyond that. So we're talking fintech and technology, software across clean tech, advertising technology. So you name it, we've pretty much been involved in one aspect or another of so many different industries.
Oh, that's really interesting. So the breadth of the wingspan from the Andean condor, and then the depth, because in terms of, I guess you're saying like total mass of mountain range, it's the big. So it's not as tall as Everest, but it's
right. Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. I don't suppose that's what the background is behind you, is it?
No, that's not. That's actually just a background photo I took here where I'm based in Cincinnati. So just
Okay.
it's a beautiful sunny day. I took it out just to see sort of the city skyline, and it's probably hard to see on the podcast, but yeah, there it is behind me.
That's great. So you talked about a few topics in there in your experience that I think would be really interesting for our audience. One of them that I heard you mention was you talked about an inflection point, and oftentimes we see as companies grow, they sort of struggle with, what got them here won't get them there. In terms of, like maybe they start and it's, a few guys in a garage kind of idea, and they all just work really hard and they're all really smart and they know their industry because maybe they had some expertise in it. But then as they look to sort of grow and scale, they have to sort of figure out systems that can move beyond them. And we talk a lot about, here about how systems set you free, because once you've got a system, then you don't have to own it. You can, enable other people. You can all sort of collaborate on the system. Tell us a little bit about your experience there and how you've seen that work for companies.
It's, in the beginning when you've got a co-founder or one or more co-founders who are just working together, collaborating, and just being very scrappy and saying, look, in the beginning, we are just trying to make that first sale, or we're trying to build our product and make that first sale. So if it's just, but I'll just say, I've got two people, trying to get that first transaction accomplished, and then they have their first customer, great, fantastic. And then once that happens, and you start to build further and get that second customer, or you're able to sell more to that first customer. Ultimately, you and your co-founder or co-founders are doing everything on their own, and ultimately, then suddenly the good problem becomes a situation where one customer can become five, and then if you're still the same, just group of two or three co-founders, how do you sort of meet that demand then suddenly that you've got? And so you can't be sort of the one size, or so the one man show or the one person show or the two person show moving forward. You have to be able to free up your time and find ways then to automate that. So a lot of times there's that sort of kind of operational piece, that phase also that kicks in, where people need to consider, how do I find a way to automate either a certain customer success or sort of the day-to-day of even just sometimes even the back office stuff like accounting and finance and IT and a lot of those factors. Because one mistake I've sometimes seen companies do early on is they spend a lot of time with that back office administration type stuff and not enough time focused on their product or building the relationship with the next customer. And they can get caught up. It's important, but not as important as continuing to move forward as an organization. And that's where a lot of the blockage can also happen with an organization if they're not able to set themselves free and then sort of bring in, okay, now how do I resolve that? And sometimes it's hard for them to recognize that without a fresh set of eyes looking in.
Interesting. Do you have any sort of tips or tricks or rules of thumb that you've used with companies to help them identify, like, what are those inflection points of when it does make sense to bring in outside, sort of expertise versus when are they just being lazy and spending money that they should be keeping, dry powder or, investing that money in other things? Any tips on how to recognize those right inflection points?
In the beginning, when you're setting, one thing that's important is setting organizational goals, your milestones, having those milestones, putting them in writing somewhere so you're holding yourself accountable to that. And then once you've accomplished a certain set of milestones, meaning maybe you've built your MVP for your product, you have your first sale, and now you're kind of getting the repeat sales, maybe getting a second customer. Now you're looking to move forward and to say, okay, now I'm at a point where it may help to have some outside help, even more on an ad hoc basis, maybe as an advisor. So somebody who can come in and provide sort of some objective guidance, also sort of removed from the day-to-day operations. What I mean by that is a person who comes in who isn't necessarily the domain expert in what they do. So they're not a finance person, they're not necessarily a marketing person, but they can say, hey, good, that's fine. I don't need one more of those. I've already got plenty of those. I need somebody to look and tell me that I'm doing the right thing, and helping me as the co-founder hold myself accountable as well to ensure that we're on the right path here. And if there's a question also about how to do that, what goal is there going to be there that's different than what I was doing before, and then talking through to make sure that whatever is being done makes sense also for the company to move forward. So where I've kind of come in to say is I come in to sort of independently and say, look, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a marketing person, I'm not involved in the day to day, but I can give you objectively whether you're on the right track or not, and provide more guidance in that area so that they are able to look at things a little bit differently at that point, and not feel so caught up also on other minutiae and details that are slowing them down as well. So then that's where I come in also, where I say I'm not afraid to present that to people sometimes, because sometimes the truth can be a little more difficult also for if they're not necessarily receptive to it as well.
Sure. That's really interesting. Well, and you made such a great point about just like having goals that are written down. We throw around a phrase around here that Harvard Business School says that companies with a marketing plan that's written down have 4 times the success of those without. And like just the fact of writing it down puts you in a whole new category of potential success. And it's so surprising to me how companies like, yeah, I know what I want to do, or we've all talked about it, but just taking the time to write it down can make such a big difference. We even say that or see that taking the time to kind of visualize it and just go beyond a written thing, especially as your team gets bigger, because something like 40% of people are primarily visual. And so if you're just writing stuff down or talking about it out loud, that's for the auditory people. Visual people need to kind of see it out on a map. Like, what does this look like on a timeline? And failing to activate that visual part, you're not getting the best out of people. So it can really, really unlock some breakthroughs just by taking that extra step.
Yeah, that's 2 things you just mentioned that are really great points. There is one is that visual aspect of it, where if you're kind of like saying, okay, what's my thought process and methodology also when I'm trying to accomplish the goals, or my organization is trying to accomplish those goals. And it helps to have, even if it's just like a flow, like a process, so you don't have to be very detailed, but it gives an idea of kind of like, even if it's your own thought process, putting pen to paper and being able to see that helps so much, and reframe it a little bit too, so it's clear to yourself and your organization also, because if it's not clear to you, how are you going to be able to convey that to others within your organization, much less your customers?
That's right. Well, and much less other external partners. And one of the things that you and I talked about a little bit prior to this call is, in addition to sort of organic growth, which is bringing in more customers, getting them to buy more stuff from you, adding more value to them that they're willing to exchange, compensation to you. Another really important sort of growth driver for businesses, especially early stages, can be these kind of inorganic activities. So things like getting funding or bringing in a partner or looking at M&A. I know you've had some experience there. What are, sort of things to think about as companies think about, a way to propel their growth beyond just, bringing in more customers? What are some of the things they should be thinking about, and what are some of the things they should be doing operationally to sort of prepare for that?
As a company's growth strategy starts to evolve, and there's sort of putting pen to paper for the next level of sort of the next goals, to say, okay, now in this first year we've achieved $1 million in sales. Now we're going to get to $10 million and whatnot. But then how are we going to accomplish that? Is it just purely because of new customers? Is it because we're going to acquire somebody? Are we going to get outside capital? And maybe all of them are options. They might all be viable options, and you're just going to pursue whichever one really works out. That comes into play also, where you are still, one, of course, just writing those down to hold yourself accountable and making sure that it's presentable to everybody. 2 is to get there. Looking inside internally within the company, do you have the talent there to help accomplish those goals? I always say, in general, you probably shouldn't. because it would be better that you are going outside and somebody's offering a fresh perspective to come in. So I'm always a big proponent of that. I'll call it diversity of thought.
Sure.
Somebody comes in and offers insight that you ordinarily would not have. So that they have skill sets also that are complementary to what you and your other co-founders might have, or maybe you've built a team and you have 6 or 7 other people, whatever it might be. But then bringing in also that somebody else who is directly as a growth driver for the organization to move it forward. So maybe now you are ready to bring in a chief marketing officer or a chief revenue officer, or you're looking for saying, okay, outside partnerships, and it's more like a business officer or more biz dev, whatever that might be. Then you might say, okay, now I know that I have certain skills, certain people that I need to bring on board, for one. And then the second piece then would be, yes, more operationally then. Is it more, something on the day-to-day as far as communication, more systems? Then are you ready now to build, a more substantial CRM system for all of your customers, and how you track the different conversations, even if it doesn't lead to any specific traction, you're still maintaining a history, if nothing else, internally for the company to follow up on later on. So that offers at least a little bit of an example of where a company is looking to grow, how they're looking to grow and move forward.
That's really interesting. You made such a great point, that diversity of thought. We also sort of see just sort of like the, hire an expert if you want it done
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
I always tell the story on myself. Not that long ago, we decided we were going to repaint a bathroom. And so I was like, I can do this. And I watched some videos on YouTube, and I went out and bought all the stuff. And then I made a mess of it. And then I had to hire a professional anyway. And I'm like, man, think how many times in business, people kind of take the time to educate themselves because they're like, oh, it's so important to do this, I should know how.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they're like, they get sort of substandard results, and they waste the time, and then they got to spend the money to fix it anyway. If
That's
they
right.
started with a professional, they'd be further down the road, faster, with better
That's
results.
That's
Uh,
right. Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, and I'm guilty of that too. I've done things where I'm like, oh, I should have done this before, or even like building my company's website and kind
that's
of iterating it, and then get to a point. And this was early on, kind of one of the learning things I had also for myself was like, okay, don't get so caught up in that kind of minutia. That's there, but focus on what's most important, and then say, okay, it's good, it's done, it's set. Now let's move forward.
yeah.
So getting that professional help, getting that outside help is one, and then knowing kind of where to draw the line to say, okay, you know what, this is not my area of expertise. Let me give it to somebody else to take care of that so I can move forward.
I think I'm going to remember this correctly, but maybe not. Well, I think one of my entrepreneurship professors in school was like, the key is knowing which 20% of the job is the important part for the entrepreneur to know, and knowing that amount of it. And then not knowing, and sort of disciplining yourself to not get lost in the other 80%. That doesn't mean it's just 20% of the job. There's a certain
Right.
20% of the job that you got to know.
Yes.
Which is, how, Billy Joel gets taken for millions of dollars because his accountant stole all his money, and now he has to, go back on tour. But like, it's that he didn't know the right 20% of the accounting
Right.
part of the business. He
That's
knew the wrong 20% of the
that's right.
business.
Yes.
But so, yeah, interesting. Well, I know one sort of inflection point, and you talked about, sort of bringing in outside partners, and one that a lot of, founders are either thinking of towards an exit, or, appears to them on their journey, is, sort of exiting from their organization and bringing in a partner, either so that they can move out of the day-to-day operations, or so that they can move on to opening something new. I know you've had some
Yeah.
experience there. What are things that, founders and entrepreneurs should be doing early on to make sure that they're sort of setting the stage for success towards the end? What's the Covey phrase? Begin with the end in mind. But
Yeah.
what are those things, and then what are some watch outs?
Yeah.
For people to think about.
The thinking about kind of where the end is. I know sometimes companies don't necessarily, founders, I should say, may not necessarily know where that end is. They might hit their goal, or they just feel like, okay, I've taken it as far as I want to take it, or I can take it. Now it's time to hand the reins over to somebody else.
Mhm.
And then one founder I met before was very specific. Like, I want to get to this point in 3 years, and I'm done. I'm exiting, and I'm moving on to the next thing. So some are very specific about it, while others then are more, they may be involved in multiple businesses. And so where I could say, like, not a serial entrepreneur, but close enough at least, but have multiple businesses going on at the same time.
Right.
And it gets to a point where it's not about the money anymore for them, and it's more about their time. And
Mhm.
they want to be able to buy out of a situation where, even for a company that's growing, and to say, I need my time back, because
Yeah.
I don't have time to pursue another venture that I want to do, another passion that I have, because I'm too caught up now in the day to day. So where it started as this person was involved as a founder of the company, and has begun to sort of position the company for a potential exit, and then looking to move forward and to say, how do I get my time back also to do so? And then there's that aspect of it to consider as well. And so when I've advised, and there's more than one example of this that I've encountered in the in my experiences, where I tell them to say, look, okay, as you're getting the company prepared to do something of that, and to move forward, everything financially, transactionally, operationally, get it to a point where that handoff, you have somebody who's interested in taking it over, and then they're taking it over, is capable. There's synergy there for the parties to align to move forward, because certainly the organization is still one of your passion projects, still one of your babies. You don't want to have it to get run into the ground while
Right.
you've moved on also. So I said, also, and then there's that aspect of it as well. And then obviously, as it obviously commonly occurs in M&A, most of those transactions tend to be more confidential, and not as open, even with a company's own team members. So it tends to be a very select few who are in the loop on that type of information. And so the other part of that also is that sometimes it's not the outside party, but internally, and getting the messaging right also to say, why are you, Mark Osborne, looking to exit your company and to move forward? And what's the messaging you're going to send to the 50 people who work for you
Right.
also? And so that the culture of the organization is not impacted negatively as well. So I think arguably, that's one of the biggest factors I've seen in organizations, no matter how much everything aligns, in terms of products, finances, if it makes sense to get past that, because you do have to do that aspect of it. The next piece then also is the culture, and never underestimating how important that is to maintain and to continue to grow it, because it's going to change.
That's right.
Even if all these 50 people are on board, it is going to change when so and so is leaving, and then once Mark is leaving, and then so and so is coming in. Then that's going to be something else also to strongly keep in mind, and to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and again, we put a lot of emphasis on systems, partly because when you're getting ready for an exit, or even just bringing in another partner, being able to have systems that you can point to ensures that continuity of at
Yeah.
least process, and creates a framework for collaboration, so that it's not, well, the old way versus the new way, it's the company's way. And
Yeah.
that can live past the person that was overseeing the project, because the
Yes.
system becomes its own sort of living thing. So that's a
That's
really interesting perspective.
yes. Yes. Definitely.
So, exited, bringing in, other partners. That's a really exciting thing that is on the horizon for, some folks. What's something that's, exciting for you? What's something that's on the horizon for you, your business, that you're excited about?
I think for where we are, looking to grow and expand as well into new markets, and new spaces that we aren't necessarily in. So as I talked earlier before about, there's the healthcare aspect, there's the non-healthcare aspect of it as well, and part of what we're trying to do also is to look for new channels also to grow that could be sustainable over a longer period of time. Healthcare is one. So I have a co-founder who works with me, who's very well experienced also within the healthcare space. And we've talked about where we're looking to grow and move forward. That's actually something we're doing actually in real time now, and how to take that further now in markets that previously we haven't really made any attempt to do so, for just no reason other than just it hasn't come on the horizon. And so reaching out to certain contacts that we have also to sort of establish some new partners for companies who are looking to make an entry in the US. So there's that aspect of it also. So new technologies, new products that are exciting that aren't previously available as well is something that always keeps me interested and gets me excited as well.
Wow, that's really interesting, and I'm sure very exciting to sort of bring in new technologies into new markets can be really transformative. You see something really big happen in a short time period there.
Mhm.
So you've shared a lot of great insights with our audience today. I got to be sort of mindful of your time. I'm sure we could talk all day, but so you've shared a lot of insight around, sort of the value of bringing in external expertise. And so as our audience has been listening and thinking about, Andean strategies as a source for that expertise, what would you tell them, what makes you different? Like, how are you different from all of the other business advisories that are out there, or people that they might want to talk to or get advice from?
One of the areas of specialty is just the breadth and the depth
Yeah.
also. So working across industries for one. So we're agnostic to any industry or geography as well. So we don't necessarily have to focus on any specific domain, which has made that part of it easier, because usually those companies say that we've got domain experts, we need other expertise, we need
Yeah.
strategic advisory, we need sort of that growth strategies. We're looking for partners to either buy us out or invest in, or what. So those are more kind of the areas of expertise that we come in and offer as well. Another also sometimes is just been to make new connections and to network as well, to say, look, I've worked very insular in my organization, and now I feel like I've gotten to a point of growth, but I don't know enough people. I
Yeah.
need to, and I don't know, or I don't know, and I need to know more people. And you seem like somebody who would be able to come in and do that, and to make sure that there's that alignment also between my company, because I'm looking for an investor or I'm looking to exit or whatever, and making sure that our strategy is aligned, our milestones are well defined. Are we missing any resources as well? So being able to look top to bottom also at an organization, it's easier to do it obviously the earlier you are, and have that well established, so they know that, okay, I know I have a very good, strong plan. Now it's a matter of executing on that plan and being able to move forward. So I tell, or a lot of the early stagers also to say, look, the idea is one aspect of it. Lots of founders I've talked to where it's been like, okay, they have a really great idea, they're excited about it, but then they have no idea about how to go about operationalizing it as well. And I said, your idea is not going to go anywhere if you don't have a strong team around you to move forward and to actually just execute and just get stuff done. And that's really important for, I think, for a lot of founders also to keep in mind. For as much as they are passionate about their projects and they think it's the greatest thing that they've come up with, fantastic. Now build a team around it that can execute, that's scrappy, that can carry also, and get them on board with your vision, so that that, okay, now I've got a team on board to help carry this forward. Now let me continue to grow that team. Someone like Andean can come in also to help to enhance their brand, enhance their messaging, and to help get the word out also further with other organizations, other partners, whoever that might be, to take them that much further.
Yeah, that's great insight. And I've heard it said before, and I definitely think it's true, that A+ execution of a C idea beats C+ execution of an A idea every time.
Every time. Every time.
It's that execution. Like, people think it's the idea, but really
Right.
often it's the execution of that idea. And that's why when you look, at the graveyard of good ideas,
Yeah.
the entrepreneurial journey people will see along the way, like that's a lot
That's
of
right.
what happens there. So
It is.
Thank you, Anupam, so much for joining us today. So for our audience that wants to get in touch with you and learn more about working with Andean Advisory, how do they get in touch with you?
Just reach out. I've got my page on LinkedIn.
Okay,
Has a reference also to my email and my website that's there. That's probably the easiest way to do that. I'm on LinkedIn frequently, and just feel free to reach out, reference this podcast, and we'll be able to make the connection that way.
fantastic. Thank you. I'll put the link to your LinkedIn on the show notes so that it'll be easy for people to find.
Sounds great.
So thanks again, Anupam. Really appreciate you joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for having me, Mark, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining this episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. We hope you've gained insights to grow your business. If you enjoyed this discussion, please rate, comment, like on your favorite platform, and share to others who will find it useful. Do you know a CEO, founder, or leader at an early stage B2B services, tech, or SaaS company who would like to be a guest and share their story? Send us a note. Let's schedule a conversation.